Hi, good morning. Am I audible? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you, thank you. I'm waiting for everyone to join. Perhaps another minute.
What is the format for office hours? Is it that we just ask questions, or
Yep. So normally we will have question answers and discussions and feedback on your projects when you start doing projects. For today, we can continue. I'll check with everyone if we had to finish a few other steps in what we were doing on Friday. So if everyone has done that, then we can discuss a few things. If it's pending, then we can do breakout session and you can work on those steps. Cool. I think we should start. We have exactly an hour. Um, Although I'm available after the session too, but I won't make anyone wait. So, was anyone able to finish all the remaining steps? And I think one of the steps was incorrectly numbered, so there were only 11, but the numbering was, I think, 10 and then 12.
So it was basically this, like the shortest path. It was asked or not. I was not sure about that question. So the shortest path from the shortest path to the goal.
Yeah, so we didn't start solving the problem yet. We were building the environment, right? So
Okay.
what we did in the other session on Friday was that we implemented the reset method, and then there was a method that was named get next state on action. So we were
Uh,
supposed to implement that.
yeah. But in this, like the notebook, in the last, it did seems that was it an optimized path or some question like that. That's why I asked.
Okay.
There was like a question in question with the similar meaning.
Right, right.
Yeah,
So
that's
I think it
one.
would be there in the last part, step 12, which is where, in fact, after step 12, where there's a little bit of description of the terminology.
Yeah. So basically, in the step 12, it was there as like, does it encourage the agent to take the shortest route? So that was my question. So
Right.
are we supposed to solve this? Or, I think so, because
Yeah,
this was not.
yeah. So we have to answer it. We answer like I'm not assuming the answer will be right at this point. So, but we have to at least think about whether it will encourage the agent to take the shortest route or not. Uh, but yeah, I want to understand if any of us was able to implement the get next state on action. Let me actually share my screen. Yep. So there was step 5 where we had to implement this method get next state on action. Okay, so what we can do is let's first try to finish all of these steps today, and then we can discuss the terminology and the little bit of readings that we have to do between today and Thursday. So what I'll do is I'll split us into groups again. Let's take a few minutes. Again, the answer is there in the next cell, but please try to implement it yourself first.
So I was able to complete the steps, but I had some questions about how to set up debugging locally, either in like PyCharm or VS Code. I don't know
Yes.
if we can have a
Yes.
discussion about that at some point.
Yeah, definitely. That is important. So I'll show that today, and please remind me if I forget. So I'll create a breakout rooms. You can perhaps remain. Okay, let's do it after this one. Okay, let's try to implement this method, and then I'll show you how to debug the code. So once again, there are 4 breakout rooms, and all of you have been invited to one. Please join your breakout room and discuss with your fellow learners and see if you can implement the method without looking at the code.
Oh, so if we completed it, we should still join the breakout room?
It's okay if you want to help others. It's fine. If you don't want to help, you can also stay here. We can discuss how to debug, and then when everyone comes back, then we can actually do a demo.
Yeah, that would be great, actually. 'Cause, that's where I was getting stuck. I was able to import notebooks into VS Code, but not into
Yeah.
PyCharm. I'm wondering if maybe PyCharm you need the paid edition to import notebooks.
Yeah, I have never used notebooks in PyCharm, but you can even debug things right here in Google Colab, or even if you are running, even if you are not using Google Colab, if you are running Jupyter on your own system, even then all you have to do is essentially whichever cell you want to debug, you have to go to that cell. So let's
Yeah. The other question I had is that I was able to save to GitHub, create a GitHub and save the notebook to GitHub. But when I click on the notebook in GitHub, it doesn't open it as a notebook. It just opens it as like a text file. Maybe since it allows diffs, but I was wondering if there's a way from GitHub to actually open it as a notebook
it
automatically.
should open. GitHub actually tries. So let me actually show you that first. So for example, I come on. So this is one of the notebooks from the classroom.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens to me. It has this circle with, and it looks like it's trying to open some kind of like a diff as a text file.
It actually tries to render the notebook. Sometimes this issue happens quite often. So sometimes it will render it correctly. Sometimes it fails. It's not very reliable. What you could do instead is there is this website. So it's not very reliable. Sometimes you have to refresh it 5, 6 times and then it will come up. If the notebook is small, then obviously it will load in one go. Yeah. So say something went wrong.
Yes, I was thinking I could do like a save file as if I had a way to open it locally, and I'm able to open it in VS Code, but I wasn't able to figure out how to debug it there.
Okay. So so there are 2 things. One is if you just want to preview it online, then you can use this website.
Ah, cool.
right? And just type the URL here, and it will. And I think behind the scene, perhaps GitHub uses the same URL, but there is some issue. It's not very reliable.
See. And I guess I could also open it from Colab, right? Giving my,
Yep. You can also open it in Collaborate. The other thing is, how do you debug things, right? So let's try this first. So
I see.
So suppose I want to debug this error, then all I need to do is in this cell where the code is, I add a line like this, sorry, PDB, which just tells Jupyter to enable the Python debugger,
Hmm.
right? And when I run this cell, right? So now when there's an error, you see this prompt here, right?
Okay.
It's already showing you where it is a step where the exception is coming from, and then you can do
Cool.
all the things like you can go up the stack, down the stack, you can continue. If I hit C, it just continues.
Is there a way
But
to kind of see all of the variables or put watches or
yes,
things like this?
yes, you can print test directly. You just type the variable name and hit enter.
I see. Okay.
So this is the simplest thing, but yeah, if there's something deep down somewhere in the stack you're not able to do it here, then obviously Visual Studio Code also lets you debug.
Yeah, I was having issues with that with a notebook.
Were you getting some sort of an error?
No, it just I'm not able to set a breakpoint. When I click, let's see, where is this? When I click F9 or I click toggle breakpoint on any line in the notebook, it doesn't seem to do anything.
So one thing you need to do is, setting the breakpoint is easy. You just double click, in the margin, and then you'll see a red circle, right? But after that, you have to launch using the debug mode. Were you doing that?
No, how do I do that?
Can you share your screen?
Yeah.
Thank you. I think I'll have to stop sharing mine.
This. You see the Visual Studio Code?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was able to open the notebook, right? But if I click on the margin, nothing happens. If I hit F9, nothing happens. If I hit like run, toggle breakpoint, nothing happens. So that's where I was getting stuck.
Well, this seems like this is.
And I can
strange.
run it.
Yeah. So
I
in
can click on
Visual
it and it
Studio,
runs.
right?
I mean, I probably have to run the ones above it, but
Can you go to the debug mode, which is like to the extreme left, and then you see these large icons, file, and the search icon, then branch icon, and then below that there's
oh, here, yeah.
Yeah.
This guy, run and
Yep.
debug.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's asking for a Python environment. I think you can select Python. Do you have Conda installed?
Hmm?
Do you have Conda environment installed?
The what environment? Oh, Conda. Yes, I do.
Oh, no. Is it the same one that's appearing here as Python?
Yeah. It's I just created what do you call those things? An environment called face swap.
Right. Yeah.
I downloaded, that had all the packages.
Cool.
So it
I
has
think,
Python, TensorFlow.
right. I think you just need to select Python for the time being.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Python file. Please open it.
Yeah, open launch. Yeah. So there is a little bit of
Hmm.
there's a very little configuration that you have to do.
Okay. Huh. I haven't used VS Code before. I usually use PyCharm.
So I think the only thing you need to do is you have to rename the program variable. Everything else seems fine.
Oh. So I would call this the name of the notebook.
Yeah.
How do I grab this? Copy path. Oh. Where did that go? All right, let's try that again. Oh, wait, maybe now it's working. Nope.
Sure.
Oh, here we go.
No?
Okay, launch that JSON. So I do this
Yes.
and then save it.
I think you will need to replace the backslashes. You have to put 2 of them because you need
I
to
see.
escape the first.
Okay. Now what? I just click this again.
No. You first need to select the file that you need to debug.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Now you can select run in debugging mode.
Okay. All right, it's doing something.
Yeah. So let's see if you can place a breakpoint now.
Still,
Can you try clicking on the left of this thing? No?
nope. Let's see. Run. New break. Let's try toggle breakpoint. No. Maybe if I go to something that didn't run yet. Oh, yeah. Maybe you know why? Because these are all functions. Does that matter?
It shouldn't. You should be able to hit a breakpoint.
Huh.
Place a breakpoint anywhere.
Because I can run it, but for some reason, still no luck.
You can try one thing, which is you can go to collab perhaps and save the same file as a Python script, and then open that file here and see if you can place a breakpoint or not.
Okay, I'll give that a shot. Yeah, I mean, because that's what I was doing to debug in PyCharm,
Yeah.
but I wasn't able to open notebooks in
Yeah.
PyCharm. That was the issue. All right,
Actually,
thanks.
it should work because I have done this and they implemented this recently, but I don't know what the issue is. Is it a fresh installation or do you have VS
Yeah.
Code?
I just installed it. I didn't used to use VS Code at all. I had PyCharm, so I just installed this, on Thursday when you mentioned that this is the way to do the debug.
Yeah. I'll check this once on my system and then I'll let you know how to proceed.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. I'll stop sharing. How do I do that? Stop sharing.
Yeah. So I'll jump into the different breakout rooms for some time. Okay, I think everyone was able to implement step 5 and step 6, right? All right. So can we move on to step 7 then, which is implementing the step method, which is the last thing, and yeah, which is the last bit that we need to implement, or is that also already done? Cool. So yes, there are some confirmation. So if everyone has done, step 1 through 12, and there are only 11 steps, but everyone is done, then we can talk about what else we need to do before Thursday. Are we good there? Everyone has finished. Of course, the code is there, but I want to know that you didn't, you didn't run into any problems, and you understood what was the need to implement those APIs. Okay. Did everyone also try the alternative reward structure?
The cell is taking too long to run. So should we
Could be a
just
problem because it shouldn't it shouldn't take more than a few seconds.
okay?
Does your notebook say connected? Do you say connected at the top right?
Um,
Are you using Google Colab?
yeah, I'm using Google Colab.
Okay. So if it's connected, then you would see a green check mark and two progress bars. One says RAM and then disk.
Yeah, I chose 3 green dots and then RAM and disk.
Three green dots. That might be,
Okay, it says waiting for Python
yeah.
3 compute engine backend to finish its current execution.
And this cell what you're running?
Uh, the last one, set rewards to the changed one.
Okay, that is strange because set rewards should take no more than a split second,
Okay.
right? I mean, you can look
I
at
had an
the.
issue where one of the cells expected user input, so it looked like it was hanging, but it was waiting
Oh,
for user input. So that
oh,
might be the
oh,
issue.
Okay,
yes,
probably should exit that
yeah.
too.
So
Okay.
if you look at
Got it.
that loop, you should type X and exit the simulation loop.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about what we are doing. At this point, the only thing you need to do is go through the terminology, which is pasted at the bottom. But before that, everyone understand what rewards are. These are the immediate feedback that you're getting from the environment. You can think of them as labels as well. And if you were doing supervised learning, then they're sort of labels that that change from step to step. But what we want to do is pretty much like supervised learning setting. We want to come up with a single number, right? And then we want to define our goal in terms of that number, right? In this case, because we said we wanted to score a goal and we wanted to do it through the shortest route, then that number should represent perhaps the number of steps, or perhaps the sum of the reward that you collected, because we already sort of defined the reward in a way. And this was the question that we needed to answer, that is the reward such that it will nudge the agent to take the shortest route. So think about that, and then think about how to define that single number, which is a combination of all the individual rewards. That is one thing that we need to think about. Um, Combination. And then there's something that I pinged on the Slack channel about cumulative rewards and cumulative returns and discounted cumulative returns. That is something that we'll start discussing on Thursday. But just to give you an idea, when you're combining rewards, then that that combined number, that single number, that is what is called return. And you may not want to give equal weightage to all the different rewards at different steps, right? And that is why that discount factor is there. And we will experiment with different discount factors to see what the outcomes are and which one is more appropriate. But another important thing that I want to discuss is the alternative reward that we did, where moving to an unmarked cell got you 0 points, and then I think pretty much everything else was the same. Running into opponent was still -5, outside -1, and goal was +5. So do you see a difference between this reward and the previous one, where we were still penalizing every movement? Even if you are moving to an unmarked cell, you still got -1. So what could be the positives or negatives of these two different reward structures?
So in this case of like the unmarked equal to 0, so it may happen that that particular ball may be just like happy staying wherever it is. It may not move.
Right. Yeah. You can stall progress. You can remove the cell. You can also do loops. That is also not good. That is not a desired behavior, but it can happen because uh, you are not rewarding the agent for making progress, right? But the thing is that when we look at more realistic problems, very often this will be the case. And what I mean is that very often you will not know what the reward at each step should be, right? So there will be specific things for which you will be able to sort of design a reward, and then you can combine those rewards into a return, a single number. But like, think of the self-driving car example that we did earlier. So and think of what the reward should be, or think of an algorithm that decides whether to buy or sell stocks, and then think of what the reward should be. Would you be able to come up with a number that can instantaneously sort of tell you whether that action was good or not? Because in the general setting, in the realistic problems, you won't know. Like, you have to come up with something which that helps the algorithm train, but you don't know what that reward should be, and very often you will have to just set it to 0. So this is something like, I don't want an answer right now, but just think about all these different examples that we talked about in the first presentation, where reinforcement learning can be used, and think about what would the appropriate reward look like, and then what will the return look like.
For this problem, are we trying to get the agent to do the optimal thing on this specific board only, or do we want to train an agent that could generalize to a different board?
No, right now only on this board, this setting where everything is static and they're in their respective cells.
Okay.
Yeah, because we want to move really gradually. This is an example just to get your feet wet. We will explore a couple of examples with a couple of algorithms with this example, everything being static. And of course, this is trivially solvable with any shortest path algorithm. But once we have done few of these algorithms, then we will start tweaking things. We'll make the agents move around. We can even implement a simple AI algorithm that where these agents try to follow the ball, or they can try to block the goal post, whatever. And then we'll see how to learn those scenarios as well.
So then I don't see how the 0 reward structure would make sense for this problem at all. Because, for example, let's say it's already found a solution, right? With the 0 one, it can't. You're not encouraging it to find a better solution.
Yeah, so that is what I'm saying. So I'm not saying 0 is the right thing to do. I'm saying that very often you won't know how to reward, right? And so the only thing you could do is just leave the instantaneous reward out, which means it is going to be 0. And we will sort of discuss that when we talk about returns and discounted returns on Thursday. So we'll see that despite the reward being zero, you can make it work.
I guess even if the reward is the 0, the final goal, the earlier you reach to it, it will get less discounted, so you get some
Yeah,
benefit for
that's
that one.
right. That's right. That is why I want everyone to sort of think about it. Let do it with pen or paper or just run the simulation. So I shared 4 different paths, right? I'll share in the main chat again. But sorry, but there are these 4 sample paths, and you can make your own paths as well. But if you just want to give it a try, then try these 4 options with different reward structures. You can try the 2 alternatives that we have here. You can also try your own reward structures. But I just pinged in the chat and Slack too. Yeah. So just try different reward structures with these 4 paths and see what the outcome is. And so one more thing, when we were away in different breakout rooms, I was discussing something which is debugging your code, which is going to be really important going forward. So very quickly, I have a very tiny dummy example, right? So if you look at the code on my screen, there's a method called foo, and just squares the input. And if you run it with a number, then it runs. If you run it with a string, then it
Are you
crashes.
sharing something? I'm not seeing your screen.
Oh, my bad. I need to share my screen. Can you see it now?
Yeah, we can
Yes.
see it.
Right. So there's this function that just squares this input, and it runs well if you give it an integer or number, but obviously it will fail for a string, right? And this could be anything more complex. But how do you sort of debug it right here in Jupyter Notebook? So just place this. It's called a cell magic, the percent %pdb thing you see. Place that in your code wherever your method that is crashing happens to be, and run it again, and this will enable the Python debugger here. So now if you, yep, so this time you still get the error, but now it has automatically sort of placed a breakpoint where the exception happened. And now you can look at variables. For example, you can just type the name of the variable and print the variable. You can go up or down the stack like you do with any debugger. You can place breakpoints, and you can continue, like place breakpoint somewhere ahead and then jump to that breakpoint. So all of those things, all the basic debugging functions, they are available here. And once you are done, then you can continue with C. This is going to be essential debugging. I mean, I think we don't need anything beyond this. Print statements, and this will suffice. Otherwise, if you are going to use an IDE, I would recommend using Visual Studio Code. But if you have experience with PyCharm, that is fine as well. We were also trying to figure out how to debug Jupyter notebooks in Visual Studio Code. It doesn't seem to be working right now. I'll figure that out. I'll share the solution. Visual Studio Code, if you are interested, then it's really easy to set up, and even things like debugging are really straightforward. So there are different modes, and you go to debugging mode and run things.
Uh, does VS Code require a license or to get features
No,
or no?
no. I mean, the community edition is free. It doesn't require a license. I think it shouldn't be an issue because none of us is using it. Like, we're not doing any commercial work here, right? This is only for the course. So even if you're running it on your Qualcomm systems, it shouldn't be an issue. But you might want to check with your IT department. Okay, cool. And then there was a question about how is this course different from the many other offerings. Udacity has a course on reinforcement learning and deep reinforcement learning. There are lots of open courses, some of which are also pinned in the Slack channel. So there are two fundamental differences. One is that this is totally hands-on. So you build everything from the ground up. You have a good understanding of how the environment API is working before we even touch one of the existing frameworks. Like we are going to be using OpenAI Gym most of the time. We will use another environment for course 3 where we are going to deal with a lot of pixel data and complex problems. Uh, but before that you will be familiar with the API and you will know the algorithms very well because we have built everything from the scratch. So even if there is a starter code, that is for the classroom problems. The projects will have no starter code, and we will do the classroom problems in this fashion, like using breakout rooms and live coding. So you get a good hang of everything. The other thing is flexibility. Um, so some of you might be getting started with the topic reinforcement learning, deep reinforcement learnings. Others already have a lot of experience having done online courses and maybe even college. So when it comes to project, we will have flexibility. So you can pick the standard version of the project, you can pick a more advanced version of the project, you can implement the standard basic algorithm that we want to implement. You can also go for something which is more state of the art, one of the papers, and that is something that will be going to do that we are going to do throughout all three courses. Okay, are there any courses about sorry, are there any questions about what we are going to do on Thursday?
If I have one question.
Yeah.
Step 9. Uh, I got the whole code working. I understand how it works, how it's implemented. But if you go to step 9, I don't understand how to execute, basically how to create the arena or the map. I get an error saying that the arena doesn't exist. So how do you
What is the error again?
it says name arena is not defined. So basically, if you scroll up,
Yeah.
basically you have this the map, right?
Right.
Yeah. How do you define the map in the collab? Basically the matrix, right? Where the opponents are located.
Are we talking about this map variable?
Actually, if you go to the starting class, you basically for every function you pass the map. Right? Map is the arena or the playground. So how do you
we defined it here, right? These 4 variables at the top.
Okay, I see. Okay.
Right. I think you might have missed executing this step, and that is why it's complaining about.
Okay, got it. I didn't see the top one. Okay, got it.
Yeah. It will happen sometimes, even if sometimes collab gets disconnected, and then you have to execute things again.
Got it. I think I didn't execute it very good. Okay. Thanks.
Cool. Any other questions about today, about what we're going to do on Thursday?
What are the readings you have to do?
Yes. So in terms of readings, so I shared this book with everyone right in Slack, which is the book is called Reinforcement Learning by Sutton and Barto. One second. I just pasted the link in the chat and it's pinned in Slack as well. But this is like the standard book. Anyone you speak to is doing reinforcement learning, they'll probably get started with the book. So I want everyone to like skim through the first chapter. Not everything might make sense given that we are just getting started. But the first chapter is around 30-35 pages. And it's a light read. There's not a lot of mathematics or anything. So, between now and Thursday, if everyone can go through that first chapter, that would be nice. And what we will do on Thursday is we will start looking at the algorithm. So there is some terminology at the bottom of the notebook. I will quickly cover that on Thursday. You can also read it by yourself and then probably look at the chapter in the book. That will make more sense. But on Thursday, the first thing we'll do is we will try to solve this with dynamic programming. So if it's been some time since you did dynamic programming, then there's a link in the classroom, quick refresher. It touches upon graphs and how do you apply dynamic programming to graph networks. So just go through it very quickly. Our case is very simple because we have this very well defined grid world where cells are interconnected. So dynamic programming is going to make a lot more sense because you can, every time you think of a route, you can think of how that route passes through adjacent cells. So when we want to minimize a path or a route from a starting point to an endpoint, we can look at the neighbors of the endpoint and we can say, okay, what is the shortest path up to these points? And we'll do that on Thursday, but basically we'll look at dynamic programming and how it works, when it doesn't, and then start looking at a simple approach. We won't give it a name. We will just use this alternative approach to find a solution. And then after that, in Friday's session, we'll start giving these algorithms their name. So there will be SARSA and Q-learning and other stuff that will happen on Friday.
So one quick question. Sorry. Quick question. So when you say dynamic programming, do you refer to a generally broader definition that includes like BFS or DFS?
Just dynamic programming in the standard sense only.
Can you say it again? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean the standard definition of dynamic programming.
Okay.
So if you want to use BFS, that is also fine. But we will define, we will see that because the states are connected, then we can write, a few recursive equations where the shortest path for a cell up to a cell is related to the shortest path to its neighboring cells. And then we will just try to solve that and see. There are some nuances which we will only discuss on Thursday, but we will try to solve that. All right, so it's already time. If there are no questions, then I'm going to stop right here. And then we'll meet on Thursday. Please do the reading. You don't have to try to understand everything. It's fine to skip things, but just try to go through the first chapter. And then on Thursday, we'll spend most of our time writing code again.
Thanks, Anand.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
By the way, regarding to debugging, I followed up on it a little bit. I was able to export the notebook to just a Python file. So that one I'm able to debug either in Visual Code or in PyCharm. But I still don't know if there's a way to direct debug on the notebook. But at least that is that works.
Okay, so at least we have this convoluted thing, but I'll try to figure out. I'll follow up in Slack.
All right, thanks. Sounds good. Appreciate it.